How to facilitate an accelerated discussion on WebEx. If your discussions in your WebEx meetings are managed like they are if you're in the same room together, your discussion is way too slow to keep people engaged. This tutorial is going to teach you or remind you what you learned in the training about how to facilitate an accelerated discussion. That means it has to be faster and more inclusive than even if we are in the same room together. When you lead an accelerated discussion, you're going to have your hands full just facilitating and making sure that everybody is involved. You always want to have someone that you train or appoint to be responsible for the texting part of WebEx. What I mean by that is they will type the discussion title on the whiteboard, they will type the discussion topic in chat, they will type the modify it, accept it, pointer poll at the end, or any other text that you need to make your meeting go faster and be more inclusive than if you're in the same room. When you look at your WebEx platform, you want to be sure that you fill your WebEx screen with collaboration. Do use the cameras, do use the chat, and do put things on the whiteboard that the team creates itself. But when you fill your WebEx with collaboration, there will be a lot of things going on the screen. That doesn't happen naturally. You as a facilitator need to make that happen. So let's learn the process for doing that. The first step is you've got to prepare your WebEx session for the accelerated discussion. And here's what you need to do. First, you're going to open a whiteboard. Then you're going to have your assistant, whoever is in that role, type that discussion focus on the whiteboard, whether it's agenda or the specific discussion topic. You're also going to have that same person type those exact same words in the chat. You're going to have a couple blank lines above it so that it separates this discussion from other discussions. You'll see that in just a moment. You're then going to verbally state the question and include why it's important. Today, we've got to make a decision on how we're going to collaborate best in our WebEx meetings. This is important because we have very limited interactive time together and we need to make it work well. We're also then going to have the team type 1 to 3 separate ideas in chat that respond to that question or discussion focus. Then we're going to make sure that they know all brainstorming rules apply. No judgments, only ideas. It is okay to repeat or modify what other people have put in there. What we want are a lot of ideas. Then you're also going to make sure that the group is silent for about 20 to 30 seconds while they do brainstorm. 30 seconds is kind of a long time for an accelerated brainstorming session, but wait for the text to slow down. And let's take a look at what that looks like. So in your meeting, you're going to type the title at the center of the whiteboard, like I just mentioned. You're going to type the title in the chat so everybody knows what the focus is. You need to make sure you list it in both locations. Then what you will do is say, all right, team, I want you to give me 1 to 3 entries on these. Type as many ideas as you can in the next 30 seconds. While you are quiet, then people are going to be typing things in the chat, and you'll see a lot of ideas appear. This is the beginning of the first part of getting that discussion to happen. The second stage then is to actually take that information and facilitate the accelerated discussion. Here are the steps. When the entries start slowing down in the chat, then ask people to finish their entry and you can begin facilitating the discussion on this. Ask everyone to scroll down the list of everybody's entries in the chat. You're going to do the same as the leader of the meeting. Then you are going to quickly identify and say the most frequent response that you see. So as you scroll through this entire list, which ones stand out? You're going to say, looks like several people listed brainstorming ideas together. You're going to call on one person that said brainstorming in the chat, and you're going to ask them to explain why was brainstorming one of the most important ideas that you want us to do together. While they talk, you're going to type that person's exact words from the chat onto the whiteboard. You are not going to be taking copious notes on everything that they verbalize, only their exact words from chat. Have as much discussion or follow-up as you wish with that individual. You can open it up to other people to give more detail, but I wouldn't do that yet. We're going to do that at the end. The last thing is then you're going to repeat all the steps we just covered, 1 through 5, until we've covered all those major ideas or until all the ideas are listed on the whiteboard. You've got to decide what is the right cutoff depending on what you're brainstorming about. Let's look at what that looks like. So again, we've got the all the information in chat. We're going to call on people one at a time. So you might go over here and say to Jennifer, I see you said problem solving. A lot of people listed that. Or why is that a high value team collaboration? Why do we need to do it? So while Jennifer is talking, we're going to type her exact words over here on the left, problem solving. Then we're going to go to the next most frequent thing that is listed and follow the same process until we have all the ideas covered. Now for this example, I'm keeping it relatively short. So that's how you facilitate it. You want to make sure that we have at least one person say why they listed that as something that is important in that particular list. The next step in this accelerated discussion is to close it. We need to make sure that we have a finish, that it isn't just left out there in the air as, oh, here's a bunch of ideas that we created. We've got to agree on it or finalize it or do something with it. So at this point, you're going to ask your assistant to type, modify it, or accept it on the whiteboard. Then you're going to say, all right, everyone, if you agree with this list, click your pointer on the words accept it. But if you want to add anything or put more verbal detail in on any of these ideas, please click on modify it because we want to hear what that is before we close the discussion. So everyone's going to put their pointer on either accept it or modify it. Make sure you say, I want to see everybody's pointer out there. And then once they're in, we're going to look at all the modify responses and we're going to say, all right, let's go through these one at a time and resolve them so that we can close this discussion. At that point, you'll be asking them for more verbal detail. Once they finish saying what was important to them, you're going to ask them to move their pointer over to the right. Then the last thing is you're going to thank the team and we're going to close the discussion and then we're going to say, I as a leader am going to take action on this. This is the list I'm going to use to help make sure that we are using this collaborative time the best way that meets all of our needs. And we're also going to post that agreement on SharePoint. So to finalize the discussion, what you're going to do is type modified or accepted on the slide. You're going to ask everybody to put their pointers on there, and we're going to finalize it. But always make sure that you say, as the facilitator, here is the action we're going to take based on this agreement that we have made together. You always want to make sure you post it on SharePoint so everybody can see that we have made that agreement. So what's important is in supercharging a team discussion, we can't just have one person talk at a time and put their viewpoint out there because no one's going to be listening. We've got to supercharge that team discussion. That's why we use the chat as a discussion chat list to get the ideas out there. That's why then we go into the next phase, which is talking about the main ideas that we're seeing. And then we want to have some kind of a feedback snapshot, which in this case would be to close this discussion. Do we agree to close this discussion? Do we want to accept it or modify it? That's where you get that agreement. What you do then is you have the team really know that we have worked together, we have made this decision together, and wow, look how great we are as a team to have gotten this done. So accelerated discussion, you've got to supercharge it using the chat, use the pointer, use the annotations on the whiteboard to get everybody to feel that they have been heard, everyone has been a part of the discussion, and that we have made this decision together. This is Dr. Jacqueline Costner, the Webinar Guru. This is the end of this tutorial.